Welcome to What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair, President and CEO of Swan Capital. And he has offices in Pensacola and Mobile and Daphne, Alabama as well. I'm Luann Fulmer. And, you know, it's good news that we're starting to see signs of the American economy heating up after the pandemic. But what does it mean for you as you get close to retirement? Or if you're already there, how can you adjust to this rapidly changing world of inflation and volatility and taxes? Well, today on What Your Money Would Say, Andrew's going to get into that and talk about how planning ahead for these potential risks could really help you in this world and help you focus on the bigger picture, possibly saving your potentially keeping thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in your pocket over a lifetime. So here's that phone number for you to remember today, 800-848-8768. Andrew is giving you the opportunity to come in and talk to him complimentary. He'll help you with a written comprehensive plan for your retirement, 800-848-8768. He'll be talking about the Swan planning process. He does that every week. Again, this is something that he offers to retirees. 800-848-8768. And, of course, find us online anytime at swan-capital.com. Andrew, here we are again. Great to be with you.
Always glad to be with you every week, Luann.
Awesome. Okay, so lots been going on in our economy lately. The Department of Labor reported last week that the consumer price index rose about 0.5% in March, which was up from the month before. And then overall from a year ago, it's up 2.5%. I think we've all seen that already at the gas pumps, which really makes me mad. But good news is the Federal Reserve says this is just temporary. So temporary or not, Andrew, how do we plan for the reality that things just are going to get expensive as time goes on?
Well, it's the truth. Prices are going through the roof. And pardon the pun, because I just completed building my house. And, you know, my house had like 480 sheets of plywood. And I think we bought it at like $8, Luann, and today it's like $48. I mean, it is exponentially higher. And COVID is one of those reasons why lumber mills and again, really many companies in general have raised their prices because of supply and demand. And unfortunately, you know, the Fed may say that it's temporary, but you and I know that when prices go up 30%, it's not like they're going to go down 30%. They may go down 10, 15% in my opinion and what I've witnessed in life. But as a retiree, here's why it matters for you, is because if you have lazy money that is sitting on the sidelines, that's not keeping up with inflation, and we start to see real inflation when we go to Home Depot to buy appliances, which I heard were up 9 to 12%. That's a huge deficit if we're only making 1% return on our money, but things that we, you know, buy every day that, you know, again, fall into disarray like appliances are up 9 to 12%. That's a huge deficit.
Yeah, it really is. So, okay, we have the economy heating up. Stock market's been great for a while now, but those aren't really the same thing. So should either one of those matter more to retirees and soon-to-be retirees?
Well, I do think we have to keep our eyes on the stock market. The stock market, at the end of the day, is a marketplace of buying companies and exchanging stock ownership of a company. And if we're not careful, we can lose sight of why people even invest in stocks in the first place. When you invest in stocks, it means you're becoming a partial owner of Disney or Apple. And that means if you were going to go buy, let's say, a cup of coffee, and you were, you know, had really enjoyed your experience at this coffee shop, and you see the business owners running back and forth because they're so busy, and you say, you know, ma'am, I hate to stop you because I see that how busy you are, but I'd love to buy your coffee shop. I enjoyed my coffee, and I'd actually like to make you an offer on your coffee shop. And she thought for a second. She said, well, we're making $1 million a year here at this coffee shop. Let me think about it, and I'll get right back to you. Well, you pull up on the internet the Shiller PE ratio. Now, the Shiller PE ratio tells you how much the stock market is selling for compared to its earnings. So right now, the Shiller PE is saying that the market is selling at 37 times earnings. So think that business owner that owns that coffee shop comes up to you and she says, you know what, I just looked up the Shiller PE ratio and companies are selling at 37 times earnings. So I'll sell my coffee shop to you for $37 million. You would think, I'll take just the coffee, ma'am.
Just the coffee, ma'am.
Just the coffee, ma'am. And that's what it's like investing in the stock market. So there can be this big difference between the economy and the stock market, and we have to keep our eyes on a valuation of these companies and the lofty valuations that they're asking for.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about your offer today, which is for people to come in and visit with you about their portfolios. Tell us about the Swan Plan.
Absolutely. So our Swan Sleep Study is a 1-hour visit to sit down with you, and we basically give you a retirement report card. You know, when you're 5 years out from retirement, maybe 3 years out from retirement, maybe you just retired and you want to make sure that you're on track, that's what the Swan Sleep Study is all about. For 1 hour, you can, use all the questions that you have written down and pepper me with those questions, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. But what I do is I go through a 2-page questionnaire, and I'll spot out some things. I'll say, you know what? This risk category, based on the Shiller PE ratio and based on your portfolio, we may be taking a little bit too much risk at this economic juncture. And I think that's really valid information that people want to hear right now, is to say, am I off track or on track? And that's what the Swan Sleep Study does.
And how can they get that? Give us your phone number.
Absolutely. The best way to request the Swan Sleep Study is just to give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768. Or go to our website at swan-capital.com, and you can go to the top right and request a phone call with me.
And Andrew and his team focus on retirement and retirees. So like he said, pepper him with your questions, because they are innovative in finding solutions to help their clients live well during retirement. That's what it's all about. It's a brand new journey, and they are here to help guide you to and then all the way through it. And we thank you so much for joining us. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair, and I'm Luann Fulmer. You know, Andrew, another thing that happened last week on Wall Street was Coinbase becoming a publicly traded company. And Coinbase is a place online where people go to buy cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, stuff like that.
That's right.
Don't want to talk about that really, but just the volatility of it all, because stocks are volatile. You just mentioned that. Bitcoin is extremely volatile. So that's the last thing we want in retirement, though, right?
You're right, Luann. We don't have enough time to go into should we invest in Bitcoin or not, but Bitcoin is supposed to be a digital currency to help individuals that want to sell an item, give it to another individual without having to transact through U.S. currency or any currency for that matter. And when it comes to your retirement, you don't want the volatility like we're seeing in Bitcoin and sometimes the stock market, where you're going to go to Home Depot to buy that Whirlpool appliance, and instead of your money being the $250 or the $600 that you showed up with when you walked into Home Depot, that it's now worth $1,200, or maybe it's only worth $300. And you don't want your retirement fluctuating in that same fashion either. Volatility is not what we want in retirement. If anything, we want sustainability, stability, and predictability. Those are the abilities that we want in retirement.
I don't understand what backs up the online, the cryptocurrency. I mean, I don't understand,
Well, I can tell you what backs up the U.S. currency, and that's to tax you and I. And so that's a pretty powerful thing. Well, Bitcoin doesn't have that right.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get into taxes right now, because the Biden administration has proposed all kinds of raising of the corporate tax rates, topping out on income tax rates, and then, of course, capital gains. But also there are some changes in the estate tax rules. So I want you to explain that to us. I don't think this low tax environment is going to be around forever.
No, I mean, if we keep on spending, up to $4 trillion, I mean, which is what we're expected to do in 4 months of Biden's presidency, no, that's got to come from somewhere. And estate taxes is the easiest target. And to me, it's nearly unconstitutional. I think it's a shame that we have people that die that can't vote any longer to say, nope, I don't want my family to pay estate taxes. And it's a shame that when people die, they lose their right to vote. And we know that estate taxes and the exemptions are going to sunset to lower exemptions in 2025. And that sunset can be sped up by the Biden administration. And that's why we have an estate planning attorney and a CPA in our office, to make sure that you're not getting conflicting advice. As a financial advisor, or as any financial advisor, we're not able to give you tax advice advice. And so if your financial advisor is never asked to see your CPA, how do you know that you're getting the best advice possible? That's why when we sit down with a family, we have a CPA, so we can ask to see a copy of a client's tax return. And one of the things that we do look at is estate taxes, because today it may be $11 million, the exemption today, and when it sunsets, it may be only $5 million. And so again, if it's $11 million today, that doesn't affect that many people. But if it goes down to $5 million with real estate and life insurance proceeds, it could start to affect millions of Americans potentially. So we need to keep our eyes on the future of taxation.
All right. And you can certainly help do that. You have something online that we can get in our listeners' hands today about taxes. Let's talk about that, Andrew.
Absolutely. You know, it's easy when you're making, your salary and some bonuses, your taxes are relatively the same. But when you start taking money out of your investment accounts, your taxes can be more complicated. And to help you make and navigate these decisions, we have a really nice guide on whatyourmoneywouldSay.com. So all you have to do is go to whatyourmoneywouldSay.com/tax, and you can download the guide that really helps you go through some really good tax decisions in retirement. The other thing that we do, Luann, is when we sit down with you for your Swan Sleep Study, which is just a 1-hour visit one-on-one with me and yourself, and I'll answer all the questions again that you can muster, but we'll also look at your tax return, and we'll have our CPA come into our office and review your tax return and say, hey, there's room for improvement for Joe and Sally. They could be doing these deductions. They could be doing this Roth conversion over here. And that is tangible advice that I think retirees are looking for. So to schedule that Swan Sleep Study, give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.
And we still have a lot more to get to, so don't go away. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. All right, this is a test.
That's a good theme song right there.
It is a good theme song. That is from The Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Robin Leach. Now, that was such a great show. I know that you watched it on MTV, didn't you, Andrew?
Well, they had like a spinoff, and then they had MTV Cribs. That's more probably my generation. So,
yeah.
Yes, to stare into the fridge of the rich and the famous.
I love that.
Be welcomed in.
Yeah, they would go, okay, do you want to see what's in my refrigerator? What do I eat and what do I drink? I'll never forget Leanne Rhymes had Dr. Pepper. I'm like, yes, I drink Dr. Pepper all the time.
We're the same people.
So anyway, I kind of want to go talk today about the lifestyles of the rich and famous. They live their lives without a care in the world, but as Robin Leach said, is it all really champagne wishes and caviar dreams? And honestly, we can learn from some of these celebrities who went from riches to rags. And Andrew, I don't know if you've ever Googled, athletes who squandered their money or actors who lost it all, but man, it's a long list of celebrities who hit hard times. So how can people who have all that money go through it so quickly? I don't get it.
Oh, I know, Luann, and we have plenty of celebrities here locally that have made the headlines by sadly squandering their fortunes, and they'll remain nameless. But we can all think of a few that we know are some of our favorite characters in television shows that have done the same thing. I think Jim Rohn said it best. If good fortune strikes and you gain $1 million, you best become a millionaire very soon. And I think his point was, really valid is as a millionaire, you might have it by an account balance, but you need to have the habits and the money management skills of a millionaire if you want to keep it. Because people become overnight successes and they have their 15 minutes of fame, but it takes longer than overnight to become and stay successful.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. What would be some lessons we can learn from these people who, they worked so hard to get where they wanted to be and they were successful and then they lost it all. What can we learn from them?
I would say drink less wine.
Yeah, right?
Johnny Depp was reported to spend over $100,000 a month on wine.
Whoa, really? Oh,
before
wow.
depleting most of his fortune from Pirates of the Caribbean. So, Luann, no, I don't think that that's the advice you're looking for is drink less wine, but I think there is some really good tangible advice we can take away from the rich and famous, and that is to seek financial advice from professionals. Because if you think, I'm too rich, I'm too smart, I'm too good looking for financial advice, you're wrong. We all need financial advice. And it would be like if I told my dentist, I don't need your help because I have teeth. That wouldn't make any sense. I mean, just because you have some, or if you make money, doesn't mean you have the skills to manage it and keep it.
Yeah, that's funny. You're right. You got to keep it. You got to keep up on your teeth, keep them clean and healthy, just like with your finances too. Back in 2015, Sports Illustrated actually came out with something about NFL players going broke during their first 3 years of retirement. So big two reasons, I guess, was a lack of, competent, like we're talking about, financial planning advice, and then even sharing their wealth, being very generous and sharing it with their family and friends. I want to ask you this. Do these two concerns happen for the everyday retiree?
Well, absolutely. And one of the reasons that I see for a retiree where they can run out of money is I think it's great to help people, but I think the real reason that I see, and I'll give you a sports analogy, I think it's because retirees try to take their football pads into baseball practice. When you retire, the game completely changes. The rules change and the whole game changes. And what I mean by that is when you're saving money for retirement, you're putting money directly into your 401k. And maybe 2008 rolls around and you think, wow, my 401k just become a 201k. And you think, well, luckily I'm not retiring, so I'll just keep on putting money in because the market is half off in 2008. And if you did that, you saw your money rebound and then you made a huge profit by sticking with the stock market. And we call that dollar cost averaging. But when you retire and you start taking money out of your accounts, the game completely changes. Because when you start taking money out of the market while it's dipping and it's having a correction, I know it sounds basic, but the money that you're taking out can never be replenished. It can never grow because you spent it. And the last thing you want to do, Luann, is say, hey, actually, honey, we can't go on vacation because we're going to have to take a year or two to let our 401k rebound. No one wants to have a retirement like that.
No, they do not. So you help retirees figure it out actually before they go into retirement. That's kind of something that you and your office specialize in. So tell us about that and what you're offering today for our listeners to come in and get some guidance on their retirement plan.
Certainly. So that's why we have the Swan Sleep Study, which is just a 1-hour complimentary visit, one-on-one with me and myself. You'll get to actually put a name with a face, and you can answer. I'll try to answer all the questions that you can muster. But then we'll get down to one section of that Swan Sleep Study, one section of that report card is your income plan, and we're going to make sure that yes, if you have money in CDs, money in the stock market, money in other investment classes, that it's going to produce enough income for you to sustain your standard of living no matter what curveballs are thrown in the stock market. So basically, we stress test your income to make sure that if there's a 20 to 30% drop in the stock market, is that going to mean a 20 to 30% drop in your income? And if we structure a proper income plan for retirement for a client, they won't have to worry about the ebbs and the flows of the stock market. So if you want to walk through our Swan Sleep Study, all you have to do is give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. And again, that's a complimentary 1-hour visit with you and I, and we'll go through your situation and answer all the questions that you have. Again, that phone number is 1-800-848-8768.
And then I want to guide you to Andrew's website. It's a beautiful website. Head there, find out even more. It's swan-capital with 2 A's, capital.com. And you can find out more about them. Swan Capital is right here on the Gulf Coast. And you can take this next step and let Andrew and his team help you build confidence with your retirement plan. And we thank you for listening. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. Okay, Burt Reynolds. You probably saw him in all of those movies that he was in. What was it? It was all...
Sure, he's got some great movies in the 80s.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I just saw one recently on television. But he told Vanity Fair that he lost more money than is even possible just because he didn't watch it. So tell us how you help your clients come up with a budget or whatever you call it, a spending plan, so that they can spend their money more confidently without even worrying about overspending.
You have it exactly right, Luann. A budget is an ugly word in our office. We use the word spending plan because isn't everyone excited to spend?
Yeah. Right?
But a budget sounds really restrictive.
It
I mean, that
does.
sounds like a diet. No one wants a diet.
No.
You know, sign me up for the diet. Our spending plan is a helpful one-page exercise that you and your spouse can go through and say, what are we spending in each of these categories today? And then it has another column that says, what do you plan on spending in retirement? So that you can compare the two and you say, oh, some of our expenses are going to stay the exact same in retirement. You know, some expenses like vacation and healthcare may go through the roof. And I actually sat down with a couple last week, and it was so exciting. They said, you know what, Andrew, I think we're going to need about $86,000 based on our cash flow, based on how much we're spending. And I looked at their income plan, and they had guaranteed income of $98,000 with their pensions.
What?
And I said, y'all need to get more expensive hobbies.
Exactly. That's hilarious. I think that's wonderful.
Yes, and that's the power of a spending plan, because it gives you that permission slip to say to that client, like I did, you can spend an extra $1,000 a month on vacations, and you can do it and not have to worry about outliving your money.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Now, Andrew, let me bring this up. Aretha Franklin and Prince are two examples of high-profile musicians who left their families with estate and legacy troubles once they passed. Now, wouldn't that be a nightmare when, you had these two people who made so much money and then, everything's in the courts. Nothing was ever, planned out. So this isn't what anybody wants to do to their family. So I want to talk about and explain where legacy and estate planning fit into your process.
And you would think, like when it happened to Larry King and these famous musicians like Prince and Aretha Franklin, that they had to have financial advisors. They had to have attorneys. They're rich. They're famous. Of course, someone is helping them with their retirement, with their estate planning. And when we see news like this, we're just shocked that it can happen not only to famous people, it can happen to normal people just like you and I. And here's the problem, Luann, and one of the biggest misconceptions is, have you ever heard where there's a will, there's a
way?
That's right, but not in probate court. We always joke in our office, where there's a will, there's potentially a bill.
I love it.
And that's because when people think of probate court and estate planning, they think, oh, as long as I have my will, I'll be taken care of. That's why we have an estate planning attorney in our office like Scott Malik to explain to clients that a will becomes effective the day you die, not effective the day you sign it. So can you imagine the people that are going to try to contest your will if they think they can get an extra cent of your money? They will. They'll try to contest it. The other concern is a will does not mean that you're going to bypass or altogether eliminate probate. A will is read in probate court. So if you have a home that's owned jointly or solely in your name, that can be one of your largest probatable assets. So let's say you have a home that's worth $300,000, a rental home that's a condo on the beach, and you think it's owned in me and my spouse's name, me and Natasha own that home, and it's paid for, and we only have one child. It's going to be a sad reality when my only child finds out that he has to pay an attorney up to $9,000 for that $300,000 condo to get it in his name. So that's why Scott spends a lot of time talking about life estates, or ladybird deeds is what we call them, or trusts for certain families to make sure that they minimize or altogether eliminate probate. So if you're listening and you say, Andrew, that's me, I know I need a will, or I have some basic legal documents, but I don't know if they're done correctly, that's where Scott Malik comes really in handy. When he sits down with you at our Swan Sleep Study, he can review all of your legal documents for free, and he can tell you what it's like to play dead. He says, if something happens to you, this is exactly what your legal documents are going to instruct the court. Are you happy or sad with the result? And you may say, no, I don't want it to go to my ex-wife. You may sit down with Scott and he says, hey, it's okay that you don't have all your basic legal documents. Let's talk about the basic legal documents that you do need. And that is a 1-hour visit that Scott sits down with me and yourself to make sure that you get a passing grade on our sleep study when it comes to estate planning. So give us a call to go through that sleep study at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.
Now, there are a few good habits you can borrow from the super wealthy, and we're going to get into that next. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. Hey, we thank you so much for listening. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. He's president and CEO of Swan Capital, and they have offices in Pensacola and Mobile and Daphne, Alabama. And we're talking about the lifestyles of the rich and famous right now. And the fact that if you're trying to prepare for retirement, there are some habits that you can learn to not do from celebrities, but also you could borrow some good habits from the super wealthy. So what would be some good financial habits that you would say we should pick up?
Jim Rohn once said that I wish failures gave seminars.
Seriously.
It was pretty funny because you think, we always try to learn from, people that get it right, but we also need to learn from people that get it wrong too.
Oh, yeah.
And what I've realized is the people that are, actually successful, we've talked about all the mistakes. We've already got that out of the way of all the mistakes that the rich and famous have made. Let's talk about the things that they do right. The wealthiest families that I've seen own real estate. They either own rental properties or at least they own their own home. Typically, they don't rent. The second thing is they have a business, even if it's just a side business, to help them out with taxation. Number 3, they live within or below their means. And I think that is the most surprising. The people that keep their wealth, not only just have wealth for a time period, but keep it, always live below their means. 4th is they pay off debt. We don't want to be a slave to debt. That's no good. And then lastly, just don't save. Putting money into CDs, money markets, won't work when inflation strikes, which we're starting to see inflation more and more today. You have to invest.
And Warren Buffett once said that compounding is like being at the top of a large hill, pushing that snowball down, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So, Andrew, tell us about how much of an impact compounding can have on our retirement savings.
It's funny you say the snowball, Luann, because Warren Buffett's biography is called The Snowball Effect. And it was actually a really long biography. I don't know if I would encourage it to every reader, but it was like 800 pages. But The Snowball Effect is alive and well. We actually sent a chart to all of our clients to hand to their children and grandchildren. And here's what the chart showed. It showed a 30-year-old who makes $50,000 saving 15% will have $1.4 million by retirement age.
Wow.
But if they get delayed by 5 years because they say, I can't be bothered by saving. So if someone is 30 years old and they wait just 5 years making the same income, saving the same percentage, they go from saving $1.4 million for retirement to only $900,000 for retirement.
Isn't that crazy?
5 years can cost you a lot of money.
So there you go. Great example of compounding interest. Wow. So should our investment strategy change once we get into retirement? Should it be, what do I want to say, more aggressive, or what would you say?
Well, I think, I've seen and what I've witnessed over the last decade working with retirees is that it has to change, and for 2 reasons. The first reason is our risk tolerance. I remember when I went to Disney World, my mom would ride with me to all the rides when she was younger. But as I got to be older and her older as well, she would sit down and she'll say, "No, I'll just watch you from down here." And I think that's what happens in retirement is, you say, I can handle the 30 to 40% drops in the stock market on that roller coaster. But as you get older, you say, I'm going to sit this one out. I can only handle maybe 15% drops in the stock market. And then the second reason why we have to sometimes change our investment strategy is the chapter of our life. See, a lot of times people say, is this based on age, Andrew? When I reach 60 years old, I need to change my risk tolerance. I need to change my investment strategy. No, it's based on chapter of life. And the reason why is because I have clients that retire when they're 55 and clients that retire when they're 75. And so when someone retires at 55, she may have to take less risk if she retires at the young age of 55 versus someone who's 65 because she's retiring now and she needs those funds to live on versus her friend who's going to be retiring at age 65 doesn't have to take any money from her funds for another decade.
That's interesting. And this is what you do. Someone can come to you and go, hey, Andrew, I'm 55. I can't work another day. You can help them look at their portfolio, help them decide whether that's a good decision or not, right?
Absolutely. I actually just had a meeting with a client, and they told me, they're saying, Andrew, I have to retire. I've been working since I was 13 years old, and it's time for me to retire. I just can't do it anymore. And I looked at their finances, and I said, I'm sorry. I have to tell you the truth. You're going to have to work just one more year. And I could see them have that permission slip, and that anxiety was kind of lifted off their shoulders because he came in there adamant about retiring, but he really just wanted to know that he could retire in a reasonable time. And when I told him, just give me one more year, he's actually, the review was yesterday, and that was his year. And so he's going to be retiring in May, and I think that's really exciting because, I told him to wait another year, and that year is paid off.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. I love that. Really, I think that's a good point in that, he kind of felt overwhelmed that he was going to have to work for a long time. And I think he just wanted that reassurance. And then you told him, hey,
we just need to know the light that's at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
When it's only a year, you say, oh, I can make it another year.
Yeah, exactly. You can make it another year. All right. So we're offering our listeners to come in and visit with you person to person, go in and meet Andrew and his team personally. Tell them how they can do that.
Certainly. We call it our Swan Sleep Study. So here at Swan Capital, our goal is to help families sleep well at night, and that's what Swan stands for. And we don't give out sleep apnea equipment after our sleep study. What we do is make sure that you have straight A's ready for retirement. And there's categories of income planning and risk tolerance and estate planning and taxes that have to do with your retirement. And what I do is I go through that sleep study to make sure that you have straight A's in all those categories before you take that leap of faith like that client I was just talking about. No, we had to fix some things before that client could take that huge leap of faith into retirement. So if you're ready to make sure that you have straight A's for retirement, just give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.
And I want to guide you to the website, swan-capital.com, SWAN, of course, and then CAPITAL.com. And again, I just want to mention that he's offering you a chance to come in and see him complimentary, and he and his team will help you create that plan with the goal of helping you sleep well at night. That is SWAN, sleep well at night. That's their goal for you. So thanks for listening. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. We're talking about the lifestyles of the rich and famous and what we can learn from them, or maybe pick up from them and not do. But Jay Leno is a great example of someone who lived well below his means. That was what you said, some of the good habits. Kind of the millionaire next door is living below your means. Listen to Jay Leno's story. I cannot believe this. He never spent the money that he made from The Tonight Show. From the beginning to the end of the time that it aired when he was there. All that money went straight into his savings. And so the only money he lived on was from his comedy shows, which I'm like, wow, that must have been a lot of money. So how can we take a similar approach with our retirement savings?
Well, I'm not feeling bad for old Jay because Jay has like the largest car collection in the United States. So
I know.
He lived below his means, but he did pretty well. His means were pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think the principle is applicable to anybody. And this is things that we need to share with our children and our grandchildren is that when you get a raise, don't do what the crowd does. It's been said that about 92% of the population will be dependent upon the government for at least Social Security. What I'm telling you to do is walk away from the 92%. Be financially independent, and the way you do that is through small changes, small incremental changes. So tell your grandchildren and your children to take their pay raise, and at least half of it goes to their 401k instead of spending it. Because that's what the 92% of people do. When they get a pay raise, they consume all of it. And that's why there's more TVs and more cars in every household than it was 50 years ago. It's because everyone feels like they have to keep up with the Joneses. But if you raise your 401k match every 6 months by 1%, set an Apple iPhone reminder that you can raise your 401k by 1% every 6 months until it gets to 20% of your income, you're going to have a lot of momentum pushing funds into your 401k that you'll be prepared for retirement. So I encourage you to, one, invest your pay raises and also to increase your 401k match up to 20%.
Okay, one more quick story. Nicolas Cage, of course, a big star, but he was also one of the biggest spenders. IRS placed a tax lien on all his properties that he owned, and he had to hand over about $6 million because he failed to pay taxes in '07. So if Nicolas Cage didn't even think about taxes, how common is it for the average retiree to not think about those taxes in retirement?
Well, I think it's very common. That's why we have a CPA in our office, Luann, not only to help clients with tax preparation, but to help clients with tax planning. Because I hate it when we see our clients that have over $1 million in their 401ks. And the reason why I hate to see that is because oftentimes when I see $1 million in a 401k, it's just this correlated factor that I've always found that most of them have very small Roth IRAs. What has happened is they've put all their money into one tax strategy, into tax deferring their money to pay taxes later. And the issue is you want to have tax diversification in retirement. You want to have some tax-free money. You want to have some qualified money like your IRA, some taxable money like your CDs, and you want to have some non-qualified assets. And if you do that, if you have tax diversification, you don't have to worry about what Biden's plan is for increasing taxes because you already paid them. So if you're listening, you say, wow, if it can happen to some of these major celebrities like Prince and Aretha Franklin and Nicolas Cage, who should have financial advisors, who should have tax attorneys and CPAs, if it can happen to them, it can certainly happen to you. We can miss things. And that's why we're offering today a tax guide on our website at whatyourmoneywouldSay.com/tax. And when you get that guide, that tax guide, it will help you make those important retirement decisions for your retirement. It can give you some really insightful information. So go to whatyourmoneywouldSay.com/tax or give us a call to schedule your 1-hour complimentary visit to go through your financial plan to make sure that you have straight A's prepared for retirement. So give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.